Welcome to Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Northeast, Southeast, Texas. How's everybody doing this morning? I know this is probably the day that many of you are on vacation. I hope if you are, celebrating the holiday of the establishment of this great country. How art thou doing? I trust all's doing just fine. How are my peeps in the control room? El Senor Howard Reynolds and Jack Van Beber. Good morning, folks.
Well, I woke up with a pulse this morning, Egberto, so I guess I'm going to be okay.
That means it's going to be great.
I woke up pretty good this morning, and I'm going to keep with the tradition of going against the grain a little bit.
Yes. Okay, wait, Jack. Let me give you the proper introduction for a man of your stature. We are about to hear Jack Van Beber's morning statement.
Hey.
Okay, I was told that I was supposed to disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed. So this week I'm going to kind of talk about war as a means of business. As we celebrate our independence, I'm asking the question, have we become empire? And are we using wars to control?
Well, I'm pretty disturbed this morning, Jack. Where's my comfort?
Well,
let's get off mic. Let Egberto have a show.
Okay.
But I just want to tell my brother Jack Van Beber, are we an empire? Yes, we are an empire. An empire does, an empire isn't, a lot of people look at it as implicitly a bad thing. Just like they look at dictators as a bad thing, I'm going to say something that some Panamanians are going to really get on my case for. But in the case of Panama, we've had dictators and we've had purportedly democratic leaders as well, both of them. And I think the person who had done the best for Panama, the country, was somebody called Omar Torrijos Herrera, who was the guy who got the Panama Canal Treaty, the new treaty signed for the turn of the century. And again, democracy requires an educated population, because certain things that one needs to do because democracy is the people's choice, and uneducated people don't always make the right choice. A good dictator may make a good choice. A bad dictator is always horrendous. So there's a lot of caveats right out there. Like I said, some folks are going to say, I can't believe you said that. Sometimes honesty is the best policy. Now, we here in the United States are a purported democracy. And the interesting thing about it is what many have been doing, Brother Van Beber, is trying. And by the way, America was a very educated country over the years. And what has been happening with a lot of our plutocracy was to do exactly the opposite, ensure that Americans would become uneducated, and in the process of doing that, creating an autocratic system. Unfortunately, not all most autocrats are not good. If you had a good autocrat, hey, maybe things would kind of look up for a lot of people and people look up to that. But on the 4th of July is coming up now, and I have a lot of stuff that I want to say relative to the Supreme Court. The 4th of July ultimately is in the background. America is a great country. America, I repeat, is a great country. America had its genesis in a lot of evil. America had its genesis in a lot of good. And this is not just America. This is absolutely every country had its good and its bad. The one important thing that I think we should use the 4th of July for is not to revere the founders of this country, but to look in the mirror and revere who we are who we have been. I have to make sure and get the tenses correctly. Who we have been becoming, which is better people over time. In all these instances, we've had drawbacks, we've had drops, we've moved forward, we've moved backwards. But as you know, I think I mentioned a documentary that a group of us made one time called Liberating Democracy or something of that nature. Where it's not, I can't, I'll tell you what the title is later on. But the idea being that as we moved forward as a country, it was we, the people, who constantly had to fight against different forms of our institution to move forward. And it never stops. It is happening again. When we look at the MAGA, the Trump era that we're in right now, many people are throwing their hands up. I can't believe this is happening. Is this the end of America, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? It could be. But also what's very possible is what Americans have always done as we move forward. And that is, as we got the bumps, as we've got the traitors, as we've got the charlatanes, have we got all these bad folks that have come along, the goodness of many different folk in this country have always come across in the long run to make it a little bit better than before, to make it who we really aspire to be. This country, when they talk about it being a country of immigrants, it is a country of immigrants. Absolutely everybody except the natives. And even the natives came over, many believe, the Bering Straits from the other parts of the world, given that we know civilization did begin in Africa. The migrations, everybody in this part of the land are in fact immigrants. Even the original natives, though they have more claim to here than everybody else. But again, a great nation that we have to continue working on as a great nation. And to do so, we first have to come to that acknowledgement of people, of immigrants, all of us, those that are here 10 generations. Your genesis is that of an immigrant. You have no better claim than anybody else coming here. No better claim. Some of you may have been here a bit longer, but again, immigrants. Now, today's show's title, Plutocrats / SCOTUS are winning. AOC nails the Supremes. Christie tags Trump, and Biden must act. Are we going to get to all of that? I don't know. It all depends on you all. It all depends if you call 713-526-5738, which is the call-in number, extension numero dos. Subtitle, the Plutocrats' purchase of the Supreme Court and its rulings are almost complete. AOC nails the Supremes as she calls for strict oversight. Christie continues nailing Trump. Biden must act on SCOTUS. SCOTUS being the Supreme Court of the United States. Let me tell you, again, I'd love to hear people's commentary, especially on, the 4th of July is tomorrow, what we really think about our nationalism, etc. So give me a call, if you will, before we, and interrupt as you will, 713-526-5738. But remember, all the videos, and today we actually have, I think, five of them. We probably won't get to all of them, but it's all tagged inside of our newsletter that goes out every morning at 5 o'clock. It's at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Before I start, remember there are many ways to get this program. Of course, if you're on the dials, you can get it at KPFT 90.1 FM. Turn that dial to 90.1 FM and you are there. Alternatively, you can go ahead and download the TuneIn app and go to your Android or Apple store and to get that, of course, and find KPFT, and you can stream us on your phone through that application. Another way is go to kpft.org and listen to it live by clicking the listen button. And when you're there, if you are so inclined to make sure that programs like ours stay alive, always think about clicking that donate button to say, we want to keep this community radio station alive because we know that we have info being told here to feed our minds. And of course, you can watch the program. And if you watch the program with the video, you don't only hear the videos that I've clipped and put together and talked about, etc. You actually see the videos at facebook.com/KPFT Houston. That is facebook.com/KPFT Houston. And you can watch it on YouTube by going to politicsdoneright.tv. politicsdoneright.tv. Anyhow, getting started. Just before the pandemic, and I think it was quite a bit before the pandemic, actually, when we were at the old studio in our old KPFT studio, I did a piece titled, unfortunately, or let me see what's the title. I want to make sure and get the title of the piece right. It was called "Republicans Are Setting Up the Courts for Minority Rule, Even in a More Progressive Country." That was the title of that piece. And, after I did that, I cut that clip out from the show several years ago. This last Supreme Court session proves everything that was said several years ago. I think this clip is 5 years old. I put it up 3 years ago, but I think it's 5 years old. The first thing I want to do is I want to play that clip because it is where we finally got to. Scary, but it's where we finally got to. I think I got it queued up correctly here. So let's go ahead and play that clip. That piece that I played on the Constitution. When we talk about the merits of the Constitution, what I wanted to do with that argument about the Constitution and what Trump via McConnell is doing with the Supreme Court, with the district courts, with the circuit courts, is to explain something important to you. It's not enough for us to go out there and just say we want to win the presidency or we want to win this Congress seat or anything. We have to change the mold of the country, the psyche of the country, because there's so much that they know that most people don't. Like when McConnell is playing with the Supreme Court and playing with the district court and playing with the circuit court, a lot of people sit back and they don't think it has much impact on them. We are trying to establish a more perfect union. We are trying to establish a system that works for everybody, which means we no longer allow a plutocracy to take it all. But you know what? The American population is wising up, but they're already preparing for a wise population, and they're using the Constitution to prepare for that wise population. How so? Everybody who studied their government classes understand there's a judiciary, a legislative, and a executive. The legislative makes the laws, the executive executes the laws, and the judiciary interprets the law's constitutionality. Well, if we are going to win all these new elections and we are going to win the presidency, the only help the plutocracy could possibly have is the only undemocratic portion of the American system that was designed constitutionally, and that is the judiciary. The judiciary can take any piece of law that the legislative branch passes and the executive branch affirms and say a corporation who now owns all these judges can now say, well, that law is unconstitutional and it then cannot be implemented. We already have gerrymandering that has made the country a country that's not ruled by most. California has probably 40 million people or more, however million they have. And someone of the Dakotas have a few 100,000. And both of them get 2 senators. Wow, that's a lot of power for a little bit of people. And now the Supreme Court is preeminent. The Supreme Court is undeniably the most powerful branch of the government, and a lot of people don't tell you that. They always talk about, oh, we have the checks and balances. There ain't no check against the Supreme Court unless we're going to then implement the difficult thing that's called impeachment. But constitutionally, you can only impeach judges with either 3/5 or 3/4. I don't remember the number, which means you have to have a hell of a supermajority in Congress to do what you have to do. So folks, the way they intend to destroy destroy the Roman intelligent middle class is to do the constitutionally undemocratic thing, and that is to use the courts. And that is to use the courts. I did that, I think, like I said, I think it was 5 years ago. And as Donald Trump faster than anybody, of course, now Biden has sort of mitigated that. They filled up the judiciary with a lot of incompetent ideologues during the Trump administration. And of course, Trump, a president that lasted one term, appointed 3 justices, 1.5 of them being stolen. In other words, they stole number 1 and they stole number 3, kinda, in that when they appointed Barrett, I think it's Barrett, the one that they, it was during, again, just right before the election. So what I'm trying to say is the reason they are so concerned about that judiciary, about the Supreme Court, is that under the current terms, the only option that you can have when you know that the policies you don't support, Republican policies proper, when you know your policies are not what America wants, and you know that you are electing a Congress and a president that more so than not decide that they want to support the American people, they want to make sure that American people get what they deserve, then what it is. Well, I did a TikTok last night because, I'm passionate about what's been happening to the Supreme Court. I'm passionate about what's happening in America because, for me, it's all about people. For us, it should always be about people. So I did a 1-minute TikTok. I want to play the TikTok that I did last night because it's funny. As soon as I threw it out, it was like it got 1,000 hits right away, right? And it was like for me that said this is why I'm glad that happens because we want people to know this stuff. So here is that TikTok, and then we'll go ahead and move on. But before I play that 1-minute TikTok, I want to say, folks, please remember 713-526-5738. What are your thoughts? Do you really understand what's being done in the Supreme Court? It's not about abortion. It's not about affirmative action. It's not about student loan. Those are very, very important. Those are rights, all that were snatched away from us. Snatched away because 6 people said, that's what we can do. That's what the plutocracy wants us to do. That's what we will do. Right? But it's not about that. For all for all of MAGA that is cheering the demise of affirmative action, for all of MAGA that is out there thinking they don't want abortion. Of course, I have friends who are MAGA, and one of them recently, daughter got knocked up, and you know what they did? They're MAGA supporting all this judgment, and they took their kid to where again? Cross state lines, baby. And but that's another story. And it's not only about student loan, even in as much as MAGA can be saying, great Supreme Court, but half of the folks that got hit or that will get hit if the president doesn't mitigate what the Supreme Court did with the student loan issue are not going to be Democrats. They're going to be Republicans and independents whose personal economy was hit by the Supreme Court's decision. So you had a Supreme Court with the abortion decision hits women's personal economies, not only their bodies, but their personal economies. With the affirmative action, minorities from LGBTQ to Latinos, Black people, Asian, a lot of folks that affirmative action didn't give an upper hand. It's not what it did. It said recognize all those who are qualified. So all of those people's personal economies, as the prejudices of some come to the realities, and then of course we have the loan. So folks, right now it may be affecting a particular group, that the Supreme Court is now preeminent. But do remember, ultimately, it'll affect all. I'm going to give that a little bit more context after I play it's actually like a 42-second TikTok. Here we go with it, my folks.
Whether you agree with the recent Supreme Court decision is not the issue. What's new is that 6 of the 9 justices on the court, a supermajority with many of their recent decisions, expose a flaw in our Constitution. These 6 Supreme Court justices have shown that they will rule the nation irrespective of what the majority of Congress and the president we elect vote into law on our behalf. This means the United States is ruled by 6 conservatives, and we will only get the laws and policies the billionaires demand that these justices allow. No to healthcare for all. No to family leave. No to living wage. No to subsidized daycare. No to a clean environment. No to renewable energy. That is what you get when you have 6 unelected justices that rule the nation.
Check out more like this. Yes, that is what you get when you have 6 unelected judges appointed by a wannabe autocrat. Well, 3 of them have a wannabe autocrat. That is what we get. We get into office people who really has no care about the average person, and they'll use whomever they can to get that. And right now, for all my MAGA brothers and sisters, and I love you guys, I'm telling you, I have no animosity against any, and I repeat, any American. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're, I have no animosity against any Americans, because there's one thing I know, that the condition that we are in, the current state of degradation before we recover, is not your fault. It is an orchestrated effort to dumbify a country to ensure that it will support that which it's their own interests, but the interest of a few. The environment affects us all. A living wage if it doesn't affect us because we may be doing very well, it affects many in our families, people that we love. So whenever we are doing things that are anti-social, anti-helping our fellow man, remember that as you support those particular types of policies, you're also supporting policies against people you purport to love, against many times your own blood. 713-526-5738. 713-526-5738. I'd love to hear some of your voices. What's your thoughts? This actually has a direct effect on everybody that's listening to my voice. And there are things that we can do. And my question to all of you is there something you want to do? Do you want a change? Do you understand what we're talking about when we talk about what the Supreme Court, the current state of the Supreme Court, and what it means to us all? And again, like I said, for those that they think they're happy for these decisions that are made, remember, next they're coming for you. You know, I used to say for a long time, people would look and say, well, you know what? We don't have to worry about that because that won't affect me. You know, we don't worry about civil rights because that doesn't affect me. We don't worry a bunch of time. We don't worry about all these things that are affecting good people because it doesn't affect me. But I tell you what, brothers and sisters, I tell you what, because I understand this from the core. At some point in time, it's coming for you. What is happening from a financial and economic point right now? From an economic point right now. Well, let's go ahead and bring somebody in before I continue here. Ray, come on into the program, my brother.
Good morning, Brother Egberto.
Buenos dias, hermano. How are you doing this morning?
Oh man, I've been going through a lot, man. I just lost my mother last week, but
Oh my God, I'm so sorry to hear, Ray. I remember she was sick for some time. I'm so sorry to hear. You have my most sincere condolences, sir.
yes, sir, I appreciate it. But I know one thing she would have wanted me to do is continue to, to act in, in the spirit of my progressive, you know, my mother was not an activist, but she was the one who inspired me to be upset about the things going on. Me and my mother would vote every cycle together. That's how deep our relationship was, and we were serious about that. At some point, she couldn't even get out of the car, and due to the policies of Chris Hollins, we had the 24-hour voting and
Right.
voting from the car and stuff like that. And she benefited from those policies. And, I just want to say thank you for your condolences. And to your point, what you were saying, we all felt what you felt in 2016 when people just slept on the idea that Donald Trump could be president. And not only that, the fact that there was a population of people out there who were just apathetic that said, oh, it wouldn't hurt. I mean, he's just the president. He can't do anything. He can only do so much. But people didn't understand what the end game was for the Republican Party with the Supreme Court. That court has been like the light of Mitch McConnell's eye since 2009.
Yes.
Obama was in office, and people didn't understand what we were trying to do. We were trying to hold that power from Mitch McConnell when we voted for Hillary in 2016. But there was a lot of people that just did not understand the strategy of it. They just looked at it as, well, Hillary is not Bernie. There was a lot of progressive that said, I like Bernie and Hillary is not Bernie, so I'm not going to vote for Hillary. I'm going to vote for Jill Stein or third party or something, And that's another thing, in our country, if you vote third party, you're pretty much voting Republican in a lot of cases.
Yes. Ray, earlier, I don't know if you got the program from the beginning, but I played a piece that I did. I think I put it on YouTube about 3 years ago, but I think I did it. If I'm not mistaken, I did it at the point when McConnell was putting in, stole that Supreme Court justice. And what I was trying to get across, because, here's the thing. Our schools, Ray, don't teach government and civics as it did before, so that we can be educated to understand the power that we have in this government, even as undemocratic as a Senate that we have, as undemocratic as the election of the president is, there is still a semblance of democracy in there if we have an educated population that knows how to use it. And one of the things I was doing with that first piece that I did, where I described the three branches of government and the undemocratic branch that is the Supreme Court, was to try to put some fire under people to say, we have to be very watchful. We have to be very careful, because just a few confused people can really hurt the country for a generation. Right now, unless Biden use another power he has along with the Senate and Congress, when a good Congress gets elected in 2024, but unless he points out to a lot of voters who think it's all lost now, unless he does that right now, it's a lost cause for a generation until people really start to feel the pain of what a plutocratic-driven Supreme Court means, not just to the left, but ultimately to MAGA. It is something that we have to look. It's our job, Ray. I love the story about you and your mother voting. I want other parents to go to their millennial kids that are apathetic, to their Gen Zs that are apathetic, to their Gen Xs that are apathetic, and do exactly what your lovely mother did with you, both of you having that camaraderie to together execute that which so many have fought for, Ray. We have to get back there. Your comments, Ray.
I mean, it's basically that we have to make sure that we don't slip up and let these people take over again. The complacency of this country needs to stop. That's basically what happened in 2016. And I'm just hoping, cautiously optimistic, that people are really awakened to what could happen if we don't protect this democracy. It's so fragile.
Let me tell you the psychological game that's being played right now. You know, as well as I know, Ray, as well as our wonderful folks in the studio know, woke is actually a good thing. Woke means you're smart. Woke mean you're aware. Woke mean you're aware of all things many others are not aware of. And what is it that's the big term used on the right now? Oh, they're just being woke. In other words, they're trying to create a complacency for ignorance. They're trying to make ignorance vogue. There are many cultures that when folks go ahead and say, I'm going to do something else, they try to make it seem as it's a bad thing to make ourselves smarter, a bad thing to be educated, a bad thing for all those things. And again, that's why they're the same thing that they did with the word liberal, and they're trying to do with the word progressive. In other words, let's demonize those words that really are good for everybody. Liberal policies aren't bad for conservatives. Progressive policies aren't bad for conservatives. It actually gives everybody their freedoms economically, socially, and every other manner. But again, if we demonize the word, people don't aspire for it. If we demonize being aware, if we demonize being intelligent, suddenly, folks don't want to be intelligent. Suddenly, they don't want these things. Ray, thank you so kindly for calling. And again, please accept my most sincere condolences. I revere the relationship that you had with your mother, that you were there voting together. You have a wonderful rest of your day, and my heart's with you, brother.
Same to you, and enjoy your holiday, Mr. Egberto.
Thank you very much, sir. All right, let's go ahead. That was Ray, folks, and we all send our condolences to a very good and aware young man. Augie, come on in. Augie, how are you doing today, sir?
Good morning. Like him, my parents weren't for one party or the other. When I left home, they told me, make sure you know what you're voting for and who you're voting for. And anytime they didn't say one party or the other. And I was thinking about, you also left out about Citizens United, that the Supreme Court said,
right,
people, except that they can't go to jail for any misdeeds they do, like other people can. And that was a real crazy decision.
Augie, let me just say there, because the idea behind Citizens United, money is not money is speech now. That is what happens when you have a bought Supreme Court. Suddenly they'll tell you, money is money, and money is not. Money is speech, and corporations are people. So we worked with the move to amend on the 28th Amendment. The idea being to codify that money is not speech, and that corporations not people. But again, we have to make the people aware before any of these things got done. Sorry for interrupting you. I just wanted to let you know that, yes, Citizens United is to understand the dangers of what Citizens United did was very important. Go ahead, Augie.
Yeah, but it all started really in World War II in Franklin Roosevelt when he was running for his last term, his last election. And the unions, the socialists, the communists were valid parties in the early 1900s, but then they got kicked out. And they told Franklin Roosevelt that we're not going to vote for you this fourth term unless the 1%ers of that time pay taxes. In World War II, the middle and lower class not only paid taxes, they bought war bonds. And the idea, if we're going to go to war, then we have to pay for it, not our future generations, our current generation. So Franklin Roosevelt, he was not going to get their support unless he got the 1%ers. So we got him into his office and told these DuPonts and Rockefellers and stuff, hey, the rest of America is paying for this war. You guys got to do your part. And so they wanted to know what their part was. He said, you're going to be taxed. And they want to know how much. Roosevelt said 100%. That knocked the wind out of that room. But he said he was joking. He said, no, I'll make it 94 point something. It's like 95%. And that's why we had a great economy in the 50s and the 60s, because the 1%ers were paying taxes. But ever since the first Republican after that, Eisenhower and everybody else, all the other Republicans, they kept knocking the percentage down of taxes they had to pay until it's zero. But more than that, Rockefellers and DuPonts were not happy that they had to pay taxes, and they were smart. They knew it was the communists, the socialists, and the union, and they started going after them one at a time, silently. They went after the communists first. We had McCarthy, and then they started going after the socialists, and then they went after the unions, but they went after them one at a time, very smart. And the people were not aware of it. In the 50s and 60s, they were enjoying it. The rich were paying taxes. But then all of a sudden, now they're not. Now we're reaping what happened. And it's people like you and others that have to wake up these Americans that they're voting against themselves when they vote Republican.
You know what always surprises me, Augie? It always surprises me how the people that are more willing to protect the wealthy, it always surprises me. There's a group of folks that, they revere the wealthy, not realizing that the wealthy doesn't exist without them. One of my other goals is to remove the deity or the kind of revere that we have for the wealthy, not because like I try to say, and this has nothing to do with wealth envy. As a business owner, there are many times I had choices to make, which is one, you could take advantage, or two, you could do what you felt was moral. And, if you felt certain things were undeserved, you didn't do it. Most folks thought I was an idiot, but that's just how I feel. The idea is, one thing I can say categorically is the vast majority of the wealthy, and I say this with love, but they are parasites, because most of what they do is something else. It's sucking on the well-being, it's sucking on the works of everybody else. And unfortunately, too many of us will sit back there and protect the wealthy, fight for the wealthy, make sure that they don't pay the taxes, because they believe the line that they're the ones creating jobs. They believe the line that somehow these are the benevolent ones in our society, when most of the benevolent people in the society is a person you're sitting next to. Those are the people we need to learn to revere. I revere you, Brother Augie. I revere Ray. I revere Jack Van Beber. I revere Howard. I'm pulling out of my mind. I'm waiting for people to reach that state in their own person, that they start looking at their fellow person doing something good, doing what's right, and revere that, and stop looking at Bill Gates or all these. See how easy I can forget the billionaires now, because I don't really have much respect for them. Forget about that. These guys are so great. And remember that what these guys did was use an economic system that legally knows how to take advantage of the other. As an example, so I invent something, right? I invent something, and because I invent something, I have forever to make unlimited profits. Yes, it was something good for society. Our individualistic nature tells me, and by the way, I did invent something, right? But it's just out there in the public domain. All right? To be exact, to control the RTS signal on a chip that wasn't designed to do that. And that's in the public domain. But the reason I'm saying that is, but there are others who say, well, I invented this thing and forever I will profit immensely over it. And I don't want to pay, not realizing that no invention occurred in a vacuum. No creation occurred in a vacuum. And if there aren't others participating in that invention of your intellect or whatever, you couldn't make the monies you do. You see, we have a false reverence for the wealthy when it is just an economic system that allows within its structure for the wealthy to exist. Augie, anything else before I go to the next subject real quickly?
Oh, yeah. Well, like you said, they don't respect us. Like Trump, there's a recording of him, what he thought of his voters.
Yes.
And he disparaged them. But you didn't see it on Fox News. You saw it on these. I don't think you hardly ever saw it on anything else either. But there is a recording of what he thought of all the voters that voted for him. He didn't think much about them. And that's the way the wealthy are, too.
It's funny. Anyway, thank you very much for calling in, Augie. I have a 6-minute one to play, but I'm going to hold back on that one and go ahead and take up El Señor Johnny. I'm not going to get to all of them. So please remember to go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. All the videos for the program are there. Oops, we accidentally dropped Johnny. Johnny, call back again. And since you're going to have to call back, I will play the 6-minute one about Biden. And then by then I'll be ready to take your call, brother Johnny. Let's go ahead and do that. And then we'll come back and pick up brother Johnny. President Biden seems to be living in another time. He's living in another time when Republican politicians were honorable. He's living in a time when one could trust the word of a Republican, and that in as much as they were conservative, they believed at least in humanity. Yes, they believe in this false notion of pulling yourself up by your bootstrap, even though that's not what that statement really ever meant. But they actually believe that somehow things weren't as skewed as they really are. History let us know. Anybody informed in real history understand the systemic nature of poverty, the systemic nature of all these things in our country. Even Biden acknowledges that, but he's such an institutionalist. He thinks that if he adds to the court, it will delegitimize the court. Well, the court is already an illegitimate institution that was stolen from those presidents who had the authority and the right to assign justices. It's already a stolen body. But listen to the president in the interview that he did yesterday with Nicole Wallace. I think it's prescient. We better change his mind or we better change the president.
Roe and Casey are decided with justices appointed by Democrats and Republicans. Yes. And these opinions that land outside the range of public opinion in our country are super conservative majority decisions. They're 6-3 on Dobbs. They're 6-3 on affirmative action. Does it require, does your love and reverence for our institutions make you do a hard thing and look at shaking up the institutions? Will you look at court reform again?
Well, I did look at here's two things. Before I got elected, while I put together a group of constitutional scholars to try to expand the court, which I think is a mistake. After all, the judgment was that doesn't make sense because it can become so politicized in the future. But so what I've done is in my appointments, I've appointed 136 judges and found ourselves in a situation where I've picked people who are from various backgrounds. We've appointed more women to the appellate courts, black women to the appellate courts than every other president in American history. Not just Ketanji Brown, but more than any across the board. We've also I wanted to make sure that we had on the court, and Republicans have been appointed to the court by us as well. On the court, want to have public defenders, people who've been on the other side of the equation, so that everyone is represented. There's a point of view to be able to be made, but I have no hard test to say you must have this view. I never ask a nominee what's their position on A, B, C, or D.
No litmus test.
No litmus test.
Do you worry that without court reform, this conservative majority is too young and too conservative, that they might do too much harm?
Well, I think they may do too much harm. But I think if we start the process of trying to expand the court, we're going to politicize it maybe forever in a way that is not healthy.
That you can't get back.
That you can't get back. And I think maybe it's just the optimist in me. I think that some of the court are beginning to realize their legitimacy is being questioned in ways that hadn't been questioned in the past. And I think there's a concern on some, maybe even the Chief Justice, that maybe we better. Well,
in the independent legislature's decision, it looks like maybe Roberts had that in mind.
I don't know that.
I don't either.
I hate to say this, but President Biden is absolutely wrong. He's absolutely wrong. The statement that he makes where he thinks it will be political, or it would be seen that the court is political, that water has already left the dam. The court is political. It has always been political, but more so than ever before. It is. People used to try to have some semblance of neutrality. That is completely gone right now. And the only way to fight this issue is to fight this issue. The court must be fixed. And the only way to fix the court is for the president to do it. Rather, it's for the Senate to go ahead and start the process of creating 4 more seats on that Supreme Court. It must be done because we have a generation of disaster coming. Like I said several years ago, Republican politicians know that their policies are not wanted by most of the American people. And the only way for these policies to be effected is for there to be a Supreme Court that is doing exactly what it is doing right now, supporting PPP and all these other things for big government, for the corporations, and trying to get all the poor people, the people that have very little, to do it right. Folks, it is time to make a change. It is absolutely time to make a change. Welcome to the show, Eric Hayes, on the chat. Go ahead, Johnny. You are hot right now. Come on in.
Well, I was cool before, but now listening to that Joe Biden clip, I'm hot all over again. I was doing so well, and then you had to play Joe Biden's stupid logic. That's not why I called. Do you know when we get those jury summonses, how you have to fill out the card, your age, and verify your age and all this stuff, and your citizenship, and then they ask you near the bottom about your mental status and all that? Do we have to go to that? I don't recall. When I show up to vote in the primaries in Texas, is there a paragraph where we have to verify that we're not mentally unstable and of sound mind and good character and all? Is it the same thing for voting as it is for jury service?
I don't think so, brother. I don't think so.
Okay, I could have sworn I thought I made a joke about that one time to the poll workers about mental status, and I said I signed it anyway. But why I bring this up is because of, and my condolences to Ray also for losing his mom.
His mother, yeah.
Yeah. My parents, their legacy before they died was voting for Donald Trump in 2016, and in less than 6 months of voting for him, they both died. They died within a month or two of each other.
Sorry to hear that.
I don't know if that's karma because they were pretty old by then, but it occurred to me listening to your talk with Ray, I thought about my mother's mental deterioration in her final months. I'd have to go back and talk to my family, find out how long that's been going on, and if there's a suit involved where I have standing to erase her vote for Donald Trump, considering that she wasn't of sound mind anymore. And who helped her vote?
Man, you come up with some stuff sometimes, Johnny. I tell you, man. I that's why I love having you on. Today you're giving us some good levity, brother.
Yeah. I've got enough problems with my family. The last thing I need to do is stir up more stuff. But why not?
No, don't. I tell you what. I'm take advice from Egberto this one time. Don't do that, brother. Let it ride. I don't. I have family members who vote against their interests, and I try to love. Angle. I gave a speech on. There's a Democratic club I went to, and I was talking to them, and I said, a couple of folks came after the thing and was talking about, but those people are so, and I'm like, hold it. They think we have horns, right? Because I told them that in the speech. I said they think we have horns, and we can't go ahead there and show them that we have horns because we don't. So no, and also many of us think they have horns from somebody who comes from a family that have folks from all my family my family looks like America, right? So I'm like, I know it's just who got to their brains first, Johnny, and it's how do we work on helping that.
Well, they were both in nursing home in the final year or two of their lives, and let me tell you, when I went to that nursing home, I wasn't shocked because, as you probably recall, I was an ombudsman for the state of Texas, and I had up to 14 nursing homes I was responsible for overseeing in terms of patient right, or we don't call them patients. Well, they do secretly call them patients, but they're supposed to refer to them as residents. Anyway, overseeing residents' rights with regards to their care. Anyway, it was not a shock for me to see that the supermajority of the residents there are... shock, drum roll, Republicans.
Yes. And I want to interrupt you here, Johnny, because here's what is so mind-boggling and upsetting when you say that, right? The policies that would give them better care in these nursing homes, right, are policies progressives believe in, not the policies because the Republican policies would get a private insurance company, a private insurance policy that's going to take care of you when your time comes around. And what they don't tell you is that private insurance companies, their sole purpose is to make a profit. So even your care in your final years, in as much as you may have a policy that takes care of that, it would be based on, well, we make a profit. So if we have to cut corners here and there when they're taking care of your parent, what's the best thing, man? Back and I spoke about this in a few shows back, cultures. I spoke about what the individualistic nature of America has done to the family unit, what capitalism has done to the family unit. It has, by thinking about the individuals, you don't, in other cultures, the old people live in the home with the younger folk as they get old, etc. There's not a whole lot of nursing homes per se. That wasn't the thought process. The thought process is when one gets sick, one is surrounded by the family, etc. Now we just create a financial structure around illness. It's a financial structure around family so that family only takes care of the good and the able-bodied folk. And then if you get sick, we throw you away to rot in some other place. And we've let the private, what folks don't understand is how this economic system slowly bleeds humanity, slowly bleeds family. This individualistic and Randian form of being is slowly showing us how anti-family, anti-human we can be. I finish up there, Johnny, so I can, I just noticed I didn't get my two peeps in the studio to have a word this morning, so I got to get that. So finish up so I can get to my brothers out in the studio.
Basically, what you're saying is our version of capitalism encourages families to separate, not to have family homes, like in Europe, in the old country, my parents would say. And so, and finally, the people with the horns, the best way to hide your horns is accuse others of having horns.
Amen. Thank you, Johnny. Welcome aboard, Paul Fleming and Jules Ray Winfield in the chat as well. Hey, give me your commentary, my dear brother Howard.
Oh, I was struggling with my headset. The horns weren't fitting just right. When you go to put on your headset, you bang your horns like, ow. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna let Jack take this one.
Jack, talk to me.
Yeah, I was real pleased when you mentioned Omar Torrijos John Perkins, had a little business dealings with him when he tried to sell him some loans that were designed to fail. And he confronted him and said, we have plenty of work here in Panama for your company. And if you will do work for the people, we will use your contract.
Yep.
And he paid money on that. But the idea was to embroil them in debt and then be able to deal with them in any way. And yes, the Supreme Court needs to be balanced. It is so far out of balance and making such bad decisions now. There were 3 decisions on that made the court have so much power of first giving power as the corporation as a person, and then saying money is free speech.
Right.
Okay. And that's what's got the court corrupted. And we've been putting in corrupt people in the places like Kavanaugh. I have opinion on that, but I'm not going to share it right now. But these are things that we're trying to wake the people up to. We're trying to say, hey, no, this is wrong, and we need some balance. And President Biden, he works for the same people Trump did. Not maybe all wholeheartedly, but he still has to toe the line. So, I don't,
Brother Van Beber, the time is coming up, so I do appreciate your commentary. Eric Hayes, I saw your commentary. Let me just say real quickly, we can't understand where I'm coming with the rich folks now. I don't have the time to go further in detail there, so I will at some other time. I've been told here that I got 1 minute. So look, folks, thank you so kindly for having been here. Thank you for your wonderful calls. Thank you for your wonderful ears. We are here every day. Again, all the stories that I wasn't able to play on the video, go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. The 2 other videos, all the videos that I did or was supposed to do today is there. My name is Egberto Willis. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.